Welcome into this weekend's MLS Best Bets show. It's MLS Matchday 11. Last week we saw goals, and more goals as there were 48 goals scored across the 14 games, but none from the Dynamo, who allowed Austin to keep a road clean sheet and get a road win for the first time in forever. And that was the only result in our parlays that kept us from going perfect in those bets. Now this week, Philly comes in off the bye. They'll be rested. It's St. Louis who is the lone team off, and all other 28 teams will be playing, and all on Saturday. Columbus played in the Champions Cup on Wednesday, and they got the win. The Canadian Championships also started this week too. Toronto played Wednesday. They won 5-0. Vancouver played Tuesday and lost 1-0. So those three teams could be a little tired playing midweek this week. Now, while listening, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel for more MLS picks. You can follow for more sports picks on the Instagram account, TikTok, the website. Consider being a member of the YouTube channel as well to show your support. Now, this week, I'm going to look at 9 different games spread over 3 different parlays. Let's get it started with the first game on the schedule Saturday afternoon. It's Austin and LA Galaxy. And with wins in 3 of 4, Austin is now 8th in the West. They'll entertain the West top team, the Galaxy, who are tied with Miami for the most points overall. Galaxy's XG is 2nd, but the Galaxy's XGA is 28th. Whose XGA is 29th? Well, that is Austin. LA have given up the 4th most goals, but it doesn't matter when they're scoring 21, the 2nd most behind Miami. They've scored 7 across their last 2 games and multiple in 6 of their last 8, including 4 last week in beating San Jose 4-3. In the short history between these teams, LA is 4-1-1. LA won 2-0 in LA. They drew 3-3 in Austin last year. There's been 2 or more goals in 5 of the 6 games between them. 17 of 18 Galaxy games now, going back to last year, have hit the both teams to score, and 16 of 18 have hit both teams to score in over 2.5. We have to follow those trends when betting this game as well. The only concern here is Austin has the lowest shots on target in the league, so you can't always trust them to get a lot of offense going. But at home, they have scored in 16 straight, with 10 in their last 10 and multiple goals in 7 of their past 8. Austin has given up the most shots on target, while LA has given up the fourth most, and they've conceded in all but 1 game this season. So this certainly looks like another good game to bet both teams to score, possibly both teams to score in over 2.5, but just both teams to score in this parlay works for me. Next up, New England and Miami. It's bottom of the East, New England. They're 1-1-6. They're hosting top of the East, Miami, 5-3-2. Injuries just keep piling up for Miami, and the latest one was Diego Gomez, who got added to that list with an ankle injury last week and could be out for 6 weeks. They did make a new signing this week, an attacking midfielder, Matias Rojas, free agent, who comes after playing in the Brazilian top flight side Corinthians. But that might probably a team like New England with just 5 goals in 8 games beat Miami. Probably not going to bet on that. The Revs lost 1-0 to Toronto last week, and they have just 1 win in 9 across all competitions, and that was a 1-0 home win against Charlotte. Messi is coming off a 2-goal, 1-assist game, and he's 2nd in the Golden Boot race. Miami have won back-to-back games, 3-1 and 3-2, but they have given up a goal now in 11 straight games in all competitions. Both teams to score bets on Miami games have gone 10-1. Both teams to score in over 2.5 are also 9-2. And in all games this season, there's been 2 or more goals in all 14 of Miami's games across all competitions. The home teams won last season between these teams, Miami 2-1 and New England 3-1. In the 6 meetings in the short head-to-head history, there's been 2 or more goals in 5 of 6. Now, on top of all the Miami injuries, there's also going to be questions of the likes of Suarez, Messi, and others if they could skip playing or be limited to playing on New England's turf, which is not liked by many of the top players. Often leads to some injuries. But there will be 60,000 people expected at Gillette Stadium for a record crowd. There will be good atmosphere for the Revs, good atmosphere for Miami for a big game here. This is hard to bet this game with you not knowing how much Messi and others might play. I still think we'll see a few goals either way. If we know everybody's playing, certainly Miami would be the bet there to get the win. But New England certainly have a chance if Miami's resting some players. Let's simply ask for 2 or more goals in this game and go over 1.5. And we'll round out this parlay with the New York Red Bulls and Vancouver Whitecaps. This could be one of the games of the weekend, at least on paper. These 2 teams are off to good starts this year. New York, they're 2nd in the East, hosting Vancouver, 2nd in the West. Both of the last 2 meetings were 2-2, but those games came quite a while ago in 2019 and 2018. Now back to this year, New York was moments away from beating LAFC on the road last week before Denny Bonga tied the game 2-2 in stoppage time last week. That makes them undefeated. New York in 5 and they're 4-4-1 with just one loss on the season. They were shut out playing a man down to Chicago in their last home game, but they've scored 4 and 2 goals in their other 2 home games this season. Vancouver benefited from 2 Seattle red cards last week, and they won 2-0, and they have wins in 3 of 4, and they've been perfect on the road this season, winning all 3 games. They are missing Andres Cubas this week from suspension, and New York has given up the 4th fewest goals and owns the top XGA. While we could see goals from both, I just want to focus on the New York side here, playing at home, and just ask New York to score to round out this parlay. So we'll go Red Bulls to score. New England and Miami over 1.5, and Austin and LA both teams to score to get just over plus money, a plus 107 odds. Parlay number 2. Let's go to the Eastern Conference here. It's in Orlando, one of the bigger favorites this weekend, hosting Toronto. It's not where you would have expected either of these teams to start this season, but it's 12th Orlando hosting 5th Toronto. Orlando drew Montreal 2-2 with a late tying goal last week in stoppage time. And after a slow start, the Lions are now undefeated in 4, and they've scored 8 goals in that time. Toronto beat another struggling team last week in New England. They actually beat New England now twice. That was score last week, 1-0. But Orlando is on the upswing. Toronto's given up the 2nd most shots on target, so Orlando should likely get chances. And TUC just don't have the offense right now to go head-to-head with a team that possibly could get some goals here. Orlando won 4-0 and 2-0 last season, and they've been great versus TFC in recent years, as they are 6-2-0, undefeated in the last 8 games against TFC. Toronto had 0 road wins all of last year, so traveling is not a place where you ever want to bet on TFC. In their last 26 road games in all competitions, Toronto is a very woeful 1-5-20. That's 20 losses in 26 road games. Meanwhile, Orlando has only failed to score at home once in their last 19 games, and they only have 3 losses in those 19 home games. Let's go for Orlando to win this game for leg 1 of the parlay. Next up, Philadelphia Union and Real Salt Lake. 6th Philly in the East hosts 3rd RSL in the West. This is a rare matchup between these teams in different conferences, the last one coming way back in 2019. And while that game and many others prior to that featured plenty of goals, they're all quite some time ago. Philly is undefeated, while RSL's Chicho Arango leads the Golden Boot race with 8 goals, while adding 6 assists. He had 2 goals and 2 assists last week, and RSL beat down Chicago 4-0. They're now undefeated in 5, and they've scored in 7 of their 9 games this season. Philly drew 2-2 away to Atlanta 2 weeks ago, and they are 4-6-1 in all competitions, only failing to score in 2 games versus Pachuca in the Champions Cup this season. They've also only kept, 2 clean sheets in 21 games in those games as well. Philly is rested, they're at home, but RSL and Chicho are rolling. This should be a good game with goals from both. Let's go both teams to score. Next up, just to bump this is probably good enough on its own. Orlando the win and Philly RSL, both teams to score, would get you some decent odds alone. If you want to bump it up even more, let's go to Chicago and Atlanta. It's 13th Chicago hosting 7th Atlanta in the Eastern Conference. Atlanta has already beaten Chicago once this season, 3-0. Now that game was at home back in March. Last year, Atlanta won 2-1 in Atlanta, and they drew 3-3 in Chicago, so we've seen some goals between these teams. Only once in the past 7 meetings have there not been 3 or more goals between them, and just twice in the 15 all-time meetings have there not been at least 2. Giacomakos and Silva could return for Atlanta here, which could help them stop a 3-game winless slide, but Atlanta is not usually a good team to bet on when they're on the road. They have just 2 road wins in their last 22 in all competitions, so they can't be trusted. Chicago also can't be trusted. Surely they won't look as bad as they did last week, but they are bad, and they own the 4th worst XGA while giving up the joint 2nd most goals, allowing 18 goals in 9 games. That's 2 goals per game. So I can't trust either of these teams, but I likely can trust there being at least 2 goals in this game some way, somehow. Chicago is 8-1 to over 1.5. Atlanta is 7-1 to over 1.5. So let's just ask for 2 goals in this game. Chicago, Atlanta over 1.5. Philly, RSL, both teams to score, and Orlando to win. Coming in at almost 2-1 odds, plus 191 over at Bet365. And let's do one more parlay as we move along later into the night here on Saturday. 3 more games, starting with Minnesota and SKC. It's 5th in the West, Minnesota, hosting 10th SKC. KC has blown 14 points from winning positions, and they've given up 3 goals now in 3 straight games. Usually scoring 13 goals in 5 games would result in more than just 5 points, but they've also given up 13 goals as well, and they have coughed up leads now in recent weeks of 2-0, 1-0, 3-0, and 3-2 in that time. Their recent score lines have been 3-3, 3-2, 3-3, 3-1, 3-2, and 3-1, and their games average 3.7 goals per match overall this season. Minnesota snapped a 3-game winless slide with an impressive 3-0 road win in Charlotte last week, And they're getting it done without Emmanuel Reynoso, who doesn't look like he wants to come back to the team, still being down in Argentina. They've now scored in 7 of 8 games this season without him. At home, they've scored in 7 straight, and it's 16 of 17. There were 3 meetings last year with SKC sweeping the series 3-0, 1-0, and 3-1. SKC is now 4-1-0, undefeated against Minnesota in the last 5, and they've won each of the last 4. Minnesota will surely be looking to snap that poor form versus SKC, and playing at home, I think they could do that, but I'd rather just bet on goals from both of these teams here, so let's go both teams to score. Nashville and San Jose, moving along to leg 2 for this parlay in MLS. It's 2 struggling teams meeting here. Nashville 14th in the East, San Jose 14th in the West, and 29th overall. San Jose tied the record for allowing multiple goals in 9 straight games to start a season after losing 4-3 to the Galaxy last week. They've given up a league worst 24 goals and multiple goals in every single game this season. The Quakes made a move this week to try to turn things around. They made a club record signing for a reported $6 million for Argentine midfielder Hernan Lopez from Godoy Cruz. That's unlikely to help them much, though, this weekend. It's unlikely he'll be in the lineup this soon. But they could have a chance versus Nashville. Nashville's defense just isn't what it used to be with Walker Zimmerman injured, as they are tied for the 3rd worst XGA in all of MLS. They're winless in 4. They have 1 win in 9, and they've given up multiple goals in 4 straight, as well as in 7 of their past 8. There's been 3 all-time meetings between them. All have been draws, 2-2 and 0-0 in 2022, and 1-1 last year in San Jose. I can't trust either of these teams right now, given how poor they've both been playing. But Nashville should at least get on the score sheet. They've scored in 6 straight at home, and they have 13 goals in those games. And as we already talked about, San Jose is giving up goals left, right, and center, multiple goals to everybody this season. Let's just ask Nashville to score. And then the last game on the night, LAFC in Portland. 7th LAFC is hosting 11th Portland here in the West. We actually just saw this matchup very recently on April 13th with the teams drawing 2-2. That's the 3rd time in 4 games, if you would bet both teams to score in over 2.5, that would have cashed. And the 11th time in 13 games, simply both teams to score has cashed between them. All of those 13 have seen 2 or more goals, and there's been 2 or more goals in 17 of the 19 all-time meetings as well. LAFC are off back-to-back 2-2 draws, and with other recent score lines of 2-1, 3-2, and 5-0, their games have been seeing plenty of goals of late. Portland's games have been wide open, and if you like goals, certainly they have been one of the more entertaining teams to watch. They've scored 18, but they've allowed 18. That's the 28th, 2nd worst in the league, and they've given up the 3rd worst XGA as well. They, too, have back-to-back 2-2 draws, plus a 3-3 draw before that, and with other scores of 3-2 and 3-1 losses prior to that, bets on both teams to score and over 2.5 have gone 5-0 of late and 8-1 in their games this season. They're winless in 6, though, but they have gotten goals from 8 different players, with Evander and Felipe Mora scoring 4 each to lead the pack. LAFC are 1st in XG. They're 1st in shots on target with 55, while Portland are tied for 3rd worst in XGA. This looks like a great both teams to score bet, maybe even on its own at -150 over at Caesars, or both teams to score at over 2.5 at -110 at Bet365. For me, I just want to round out this parlay with something easy to cheer for late in the night. Let's round it out by just asking for 2 goals here. That's usually a safe bet when these teams meet up. So let's go LAFC Portland over 1.5. Nashville just to score. Minnesota SKC, both teams to score. We can get plus 118 on that. So lots of games there to break down. It was a full Saturday of MLS betting. What do you like? Do you have any straight bets you like? Upsets, parlays, scoring props? Be sure to share those down in the comments. Like the video on your way out, and let's hope to cash some tickets this weekend.